If the Ukrainians had only surrendered, the Ukrainians had only agreed to be indentured servants to Mother Russia, if they had only agreed to turn their children over for indoctrination in Russian language and all the rest, all would be going swell. Except Putin would be in Poland by then. The way Russia has fought wars in the last 100 years or so is they take massive casualties on their own side and they unleash massive casualties on their opponents, enemies, adversaries, neighbors. And so they try to obliterate cities and towns and the citizens in them. And to the extent to which the citizens try to escape where they can, they capture them and they bring them into Mother Russia, where they're also treated as slaves. The women are raped and the children are indoctrinated and put out for adoption among the Russians. It is, under Putin, a horrendous government. You can see why Xi and Putin get along so well. I've never understood the Putin wing of the conservative movement, the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, the media. I have no sympathy for that man. The sooner he's gone, the better. He's done horrific things. He's also our enemy. When somebody threatens you with nuclear weapons and actually has the capacity to carry through with his threats, that's a problem. And also, he's aligned with many of our enemies: China, North Korea, Iran, and so forth. And Russia now has a foothold in Central and South America, much as China does. We've never seen anything like this before. China and Russia have worked together to build a base on Antarctica, and they're working together on other aspects of national security and geopolitical conquering and economic issues along the way as well. So here we have an example that I'm going to show you via CNN of how Russia pounds the hell out of a city. And in this case, obviously, it's in Ukraine. Go.
Change is in the air, but here in Vuhledar, Russia is the same in its intensity and clumsiness of bombing. It's not clear if this tiny town is a launch pad for Ukraine's counter-offensive, but Moscow pounds it just to be sure. A similar story here too, on a riverbank near Kherson, that reportedly Ukrainian forces may be crossing into occupied areas. Their officials claiming, quote, impressive results on Tuesday. A Russian airstrike hit, even though it's unclear what they struck. Ukraine's otherwise kept quiet about its big assault, despite some opaque social media videos suggesting movement. Russian troops are, according to one Ukrainian official from the occupied town of Melitopol, definitely on the move.
So now we see that they relocated. They made two great big bases for Russian troops. All of these bases located on the seaside of Azov Sea, more than 100 kilometers from the front line.
He joked about how common accidents are there for Russians, one overturning this launcher, especially on the railway, vital for military supplies.
Maybe 3 weeks, there is no electricity on the railway, and they use old diesel trains. And a few days ago, something happened with diesel trains, and it was a great fire, and now there is no this diesel.
When you say something happened, you mean there was an explosion, and you know something about that?
Something happened.
We spoke to one local man who fled the city 4 days ago.
Proper Russian troops aren't there yet. It's just the newly mobilized who would not fight if they weren't threatened by being shot for ill discipline. Everyone local suspects everyone else of something. Even people who you would drink vodka with, you can't talk to now.
Still, Moscow keeps up with what it calls evacuations. This another episode of Ukrainian children being sent to what Russia calls safety. Here, 43 from an area right in the path of the counter-offensive, packed off to Moscow's ally Belarus for a 2-week break. Others in the past were offered a similar trip, but held for months. Ukraine has said 20,000 have been deported already, and it's led to a war crimes indictment against Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's unclear what comes next for them and the town in the crosshairs they leave behind.
Leave that there. You look at that train, you look at the buses they put these kids on. What does it remind you of? It's sick. It's sick. They're all going to be indoctrinated, if not abused. They're probably never going to see their families again. And they're going to be brought into Russian families, those who survive. And that'll be the end of that. So 20,000 children. And there are people in our own country who defend this, or at least don't report on it. Poor Russia, poor Mother Russia. If they only hadn't invaded an innocent ally, if the Ukrainians had only surrendered, the Ukrainians had only agreed to be indentured servants to Mother Russia, if they had only agreed to turn their children over for indoctrination and Russian language and all the rest, all would be going swell. Except Putin would be in Poland by then. Poland. That was his plan. Now, I want you to think about being a parent of one of these kids. Many of them don't know where their kids are. Many of them don't know that they were taken. Some of them handed them over because they were afraid they'd be killed in the bombardment. Just think about what's happening to these families over there. And, you know, we sit here and we talk about our dogs because dogs are part of the family. There's no question. Our love for our dogs. Look at what's happening to these children who are being treated like animals. They have no idea. There they are waving on the buses. Maybe they're going to take them for showers or something. One doesn't know. But war crimes on Putin. I wish the day would come. And if you speak out against this, and if you challenge this, and if you believe that we should continue to provide support to the Ukrainian government so that they can man an army and fight back, there must be something wrong with you. It's an endless war, don't you know? Look at this. Look what's going on here, and it's worse. We have stories coming out from Wagner Group. Remember that group? This hideous militia group that Putin uses internally in Russia and now externally in other countries. Some of the members came out and talked about what they'd been doing. They've been decapitating Ukrainian soldiers with saws and hatchets. They had one video I couldn't watch on the internet where they start with a young Ukrainian soldier and he says, his last words, you know what his last words were? Stop, you're hurting me. Some 20-year-old soldier. They hold him down and they saw off his head. Stop, you're hurting me. I mean, you also have people with their fingers being broken, with their legs being broken, shot in the back of the head. Women are gang raped. This isn't me making this stuff up. These are articles that are talking about this. People go in and take pictures of what's going on. And I don't know how people just tolerate this. When I was a little kid, I mean a young teenager, 11, 12, I used to watch these shows. I used to watch these shows about what was happening in the 1930s. I used to watch the show called World at War that had like 20 episodes. That was probably the best series of shows I'd ever watched, World at War. It showed everything. The different battles, the different armies. It showed the concentration camps. It showed the mass graves. It showed people thinking that they were going to showers and disrobing. It showed something I still can't get out of my mind, a German soldier taking a Jewish baby and swinging him and slamming him against a wall with the brains poured out of the baby's head. I see this stuff. Whether it's the same or not doesn't matter. It's close enough. I will always support the Ukrainians against the Russians. I will always support the Taiwanese against the Communist Chinese. I will always speak out for the Uyghurs and the Tibetans. I don't have anything particularly in common with them except humanity. I'm not saying that we should get involved in every war. That would be suicide for the nation. We cannot afford it. A nation gets tired psychologically and physically. We don't have the resources. But when we do have the resources, and we can provide weapons and money to people who are trying to defend themselves. They didn't invade Russia. Russia invaded them. And it's not the first time. In a nation that we made a promise to in 1994, you turn over the nukes to the Russians, we'll help protect your sovereignty. And then they'll walk away and then watch the Chinese invade Taiwan and the Iranians fire nukes at the Israelis? No. Count me out.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to levintv.com and subscribe now.